again, thank you.
No, I'm more than excited. Thank you for just being you.
Oh, well, that's way too kind for you to say that. It's the other way around, that you're allowing me to hear some of your story and just how sports has been, interwoven into your life, so to speak. And I appreciate you having Drake here with us, right?
He tends to just show up.
I love it.
Be around.
This is a milestone.
It is.
First time that Rich Take on Sports has had a dog in the conversation. So thank you, Drake.
He'll be asleep here in like 26 seconds.
Oh, yeah, I can already see it right now, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about just the life of Corinne.
Yeah.
And just where you have been to where you are now. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've always wanted to ask you since we first met.
Yes.
Your name.
Yes.
How often do people pronounce it wrong?
Terribly, and you did too. But
I
that's
did.
okay.
I did, didn't I?
No, it's
yes,
okay.
It's Corinne.
Yes.
Yes,
but it's
I said Corinne.
Yeah, it's okay. But I'm like the worst at correcting people, and that's on me too. Like when I was younger, I actually wanted to change my name to Michelle.
Really?
So badly.
Just from the perspective of...
You just wanted to make it easier. My parents were immigrants, so I already like stood out. I was just like, I just want to assimilate and be normal. Can I just have a normal name, please? So, I mean, it is still my club name. So when I go to the club and someone asks me, I'm never going to call them. I say, oh, it's Michelle. So yes, but it's okay. I'm gonna give my child a very simple name like Olivia or something because
just make it nice and easy.
Yes.
Well, that's the way my wife and I we did with our 3 kids.
Yes.
Because my full name
I can't wait for this.
Robert Richmond Richardson III. That's my birth name. Now, I never knew my biological father, so my stepfather adopted me when I was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
So dropped Richardson III to
You don't need all that.
Weaver. That's
Yeah.
right. But I go by Richmond, my middle name.
Yes.
But my nickname is Richie.
Oh my gosh.
So I've got Robert, Richie,
Yeah,
Richmond.
yeah.
I'm all over the place with names.
That is, I don't know if I've ever heard anything like that. I like that. You trump my name.
Well,
story.
I don't know about that, but I'm embarrassed that I pronounced your name wrong.
And I just looked at you dead in your face like, yes, that is my name.
Exactly.
So I know it could be worse.
Oh, it definitely could be worse.
Yes.
So your parents are from Haiti.
Yes.
Or Haiti. Let me get that correct. I can't
I've
even
already
talk
set you
right
up.
now.
I'm just gonna we'll take a
Yes. So your parents are from Haiti. They immigrate over here to the U.S.
Yes.
So what was that like for you growing up and them having to, assimilate in the United States and the culture?
Yes. It's funny. I tell the story. I actually made my mom cry when I was younger because she thought I was mute. I never really said anything, and she took me to these specialists and all these things, and finally someone was just like, your child is confused. She goes to school, they speak English. She comes home, no one speaks English. So she just doesn't say anything. And it was something that really kind of sparked, my mom dove into watching soap operas. That's how she learned how to speak English. I became just like many first generation, you become the translator. So you're 6 years old, you can barely see over the bank teller's desk, and you're like trying to translate for your mom who's making a deposit. So I grew up really fast. I grew up in the sense of like being able to communicate with older people like right away. And I think that had a lot to do with who I am now. And my mom also just did not trust babysitters in this country. She the stories and things happen at people's houses. So in the summer, she would drop me off at the airport in Miami or in Orlando, and I would be picked up in the airport in Haiti. 2 months later, reverse, and I'll be back in the States. So my summer camp, any type of long vacation, I was on a plane to Haiti. And it was incredible. It really opened my eyes to just like different cultures early on, and it made me be more open to hearing from people and experiencing other things.
Yeah. Do you feel you missed out on a certain aspect of childhood?
Yes, definitely. Even when I was in the States and my mom would go to work, I went to work with my mom. So she worked at Winn-Dixie. I was sitting at the front little bench when you walked in Winn-Dixie. She worked at a doctor's office. I was at the doctor's office. So when my friends were having sleepovers and doing all these things, I'm like having this adult conversation with this doctor for the next 8 hours because my mom is at work and I'm here at work with my mom. And it went into like my middle school days. So, I never It
had to shape you
definitely
tremendously.
Yeah. And, I think that when I was younger, I definitely felt like, dang, this sucks. Like, I don't really get a chance to, like, have friends and do cool things. And I think now, especially, like, with the work that I'm doing, it prepared me to be uncomfortable in a room and still command a room or still be able to convey a message. It allowed me to learn how to talk to people who didn't look like me or didn't have, like, again, I'm 10 and here I'm sitting in the doctor's lounge at an emergency room talking to some orthopedic surgeon who's 40 years my senior, and we're having like a full-blown conversation. So it just really prepared me into any venture that I went into with the confidence that at least I can hold my own in a conversation. If there's anything that I can do, I can hold a conversation.
Yeah, when you mention being uncomfortable, when are you ever uncomfortable? You seem
right
to have
now.
the confidence of 100 people.
No, I am uncomfortable a lot, and I think that is what motivates me. If I am comfortable, then I'm doing something wrong. If I think, oh, this is cool, I like how this feels, then I'm not challenging myself, I'm not pushing myself to be better, I'm not growing. And I feel like because I'm uncomfortable, I'm always growing, and I look forward to the next time I'm going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, would you consider yourself a risk taker?
1,000%. I would not be a Bemidji State alum if I wasn't a risk taker. I wouldn't be a veteran if I wasn't a risk taker. I would never have been at Tennessee if I wasn't a risk taker. Almost everything in my life has been outside of what I was expected to do or what people thought I should do. And I love it. I love myself and my journey because of that.
Were there certain expectations for you growing up that you were going to have to be this?
I mean, most first generation kids, your parents expect you to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, like very professional, very highly regarded positions in American society. And if you weren't working towards those things, they couldn't even relate. So my mom and me working in sports was like totally over her head. She's like, nowhere in the Bible did it say Jesus played. He wept, he fed children, he washed feet, but he didn't play not one sport. So for me to come to my mom and say, hey, I think I want to be a coach, that's what I wanted to do. It was just not, literally no one in my family still to this day probably understands what I do. They know I work in sports.
Yeah, they don't have a true concept.
And I mean, I've kind of jumped here and there within the industry, and I don't think anyone has ever really understood what I think they just know, like, I'm at games.
Well, you're definitely not just that,
no,
right?
Right. Like, they have no clue. I don't know what they would think. My mom, when I used to work at Espn, she would come to my games, but it was never as a fan of, like, whatever game. It was like she was watching her child in a ballet recital. And like, so she's watching me walk around the court or do whatever I'm doing. And I'm like, that's not what this is. You're here to watch this game. You have VIP access. Go get some shrimp cocktail. And like, she's watching me the whole time, watching me during timeouts. Cause she's not here for anything else. She's here to support me.
Yeah,
so it's been great. All she knows about sports is Lady Vols, Brittany Griner.
Well, if you know Lady Vols, then that's quite a bit, right? I mean, that's really all you need to know. I'm also curious just from the aspect, you say you're a risk taker, but are also you a little bit of a rebel?
Oh, yes. You have to be. Anytime you're trying to shake up a culture or change the landscape, you have to be a rebel. You're going to be faced with people wanting to keep things the same. You're going to be that person that's like, hey, let's try this a different way, or let's do it this way. And so I don't feel like I'm a rebel in the sense of like causing a ruckus and doing something so outlandish, but definitely outside of the norm or outside of the status quo. And I think that's totally fine. I know there's this crazy saying, rarely do quiet women make noise or something to that effect. And it's, rarely do well-behaved women make history. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you've got to have a certain aspect of bucking the trends or the normal.
And I mean,
right?
if you think about all the people who've changed history in some sense, they were doing something people didn't want them to do or expect them to do or weren't doing before. So that's okay. I'll embrace it.
How much did your mom embrace you enrolling or enlisting in the Air Force?
Not at all. And I was 17, so I had to have special permission. And my recruiter basically said all the right things, right?
When you say that, what were the right things?
You're going to be a pharmacy tech. You won't see any danger. They're going to pay for your school. It's going to be great. All the right things to say for a mom to sign their daughter's life over at 17. First generation American. So there was never even someone that could say, oh, yeah, I did. But the one thing my dad, he always wanted to serve. And he had bad eyesight. So when I went to him, he was like, yes, what do we need to do? How do we need to make this happen? And I think now, looking back at it, my mom was so grateful because I got to spend time in Germany. I went to the Air Force Academy. I've had my undergrad and my master's paid for because of my service. So it's done a lot more for me than she understood at the time that it would do. She thinks, oh my gosh, I'm going to war. This is 2004, so this is after 9/11. This is we're still at war, but
that's right.
This was still hot, and a lot of people were jumping in because they felt like they were protecting their country. And for me, I was just I took the test to get out of class, and I did well enough that the recruiter called me, and now here I am, and 3 basic trainings later. This is the person you see in front of you now.
What was that basic training like?
Very interesting and different at every stage. So the enlisted is at Lackland. So in September in San Antonio, Texas is brutal, terrible. And I always find a way in any tough situation to make it just a little bit better for myself. So the first day in basic, you're you get in at night, and they ask who knows how to play an instrument. So people who know how to play instruments raise their hand, and I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm gonna raise my hand and say I play an instrument. So all of us, we get put in the band squad. So we are the band squad for our whole basic training. So we get to go off base and play in a parade. We get to go practice when everybody else is doing a lot more push-ups. So it was if I could take just this one little break and I play the snare, so I didn't even have to do a whole lot. It's heavy, but it was pretty cool. But then the second one was for the Air Force Academy Prep School, and that was just they're preparing you to be an officer, so that leadership training is a little different. And then the freshman year at the academy is just whatever stories you've heard, that is it.
That's it.
It is, and by that time it was my 3rd one. I've already been enlisted. I've already done some of it, and now I'm having some kid who's just graduated from high school 3 years ago, whatever, yelling at me, telling me, if you can't do this, you're not going to be able to do this in the field. And I'm I already been in the field. So, but it definitely shaped me and allowed me to push through adversity.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there any times where you felt like you wanted to quit?
Oh, every time when you're carrying somebody that's the same weight as you across your shoulders, or when you're having to eat in 7 minutes and you're dang, I really like those mashed potatoes, or when you have to open a jar of peanut butter of your forehead, all these little things, you're I can't do this one more time.
Okay, now open a jar of peanut butter over your forehead. I've got to hear this.
Yeah, so as a dually, as a freshman, when there's a new jar of peanut butter that needs to be opened, they don't just open it, twist off the top, and peel the little thing back. You literally have to crush it over your head so the seal pops open. And I'm this is really what we're doing. And I don't know if this is trade secrets, but this is literally, as a freshman sitting at the Tao Hall, that's your responsibility.
Is that a rite of passage or something?
I guess so. And then it gets to the point where you just want to do it. Now you're I want to be the guy. I want to be the girl that's opening the jar of peanut butter. So I don't know if that's a mental thing. They train you to go all in for your brothers and sisters. But yes.
You're not still doing that, are you?
No, I don't even eat peanut butter now. I'm just I'm forever scarred from eating peanut butter because I feel the only way I can open it is if I'm crushing it over my forehead.
How many women were with you?
Well, thankfully, again, I always find a little thing that helps me. So I was at the prep school, I played on the women's basketball team. So we had our group of friends. And then when I got to the academy, I was a manager. So I got to all of our meals we ate together as a team. You know, we did a lot of things as a team. So I've always, from the time I was at the Air Force Academy to when I was at Tennessee, I've always been surrounded by strong women. And I think I'm very lucky because I know not a lot of women get a chance to see women like that. They, especially in like the military or in sports, you're usually like the only one in your whatever. And I've never really had to feel that way too many times as a woman, which I've been so thankful about.
Yeah, who have been some of your biggest mentors for you?
I have like peer mentors. So, you know, I really rely on people who either have just experienced what I'm going to experience. So, you know, you got the chance to talk to Ebony. Like, she's someone that anytime, and she probably used me as an example. Like, I'm not one of those friends that's like, hey, I just want to run something by you. People like Will Baggett, he works at the college football playoffs, and he's been a part of the Winning Edge since day one. And he's somebody that I could call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have an idea. What do you think about this? And he could tell me that sucks, and I will say, you are right.
And now, do you really say you are right, or
yes,
are you defensive about your ideas?
I have gotten better because now I'm consistent. You know, like, early on, I was literally just throwing things at the wall and trying to figure out what sticks. But now people know me when I come. It's very purpose-driven. It's usually in the same lane. So if someone says, Corinne, that's kind of getting outside your lane, I know that person knows what my lane is. So you know what, you're right. I'm stretching or I'm reaching here. So I feel comfortable with that. And it wasn't always like that. Like, every idea I had, I was like, this is the best idea that we've ever had. We're going to go with it. And then over time, understanding, like, as an organization, our brand is important, and what we do and what people see us as is important. And I wanted to always make sure that we weren't getting too far away from that messaging from our work, because then it gets confusing and people don't want to support, and then it becomes harder to do what we do.
Yeah. Was college ever something that you were looking at instead of Air Force Academy when you were graduating high school?
Yeah. I graduated at 17, and I knew because my mom had sheltered me so much, I was going to get kicked out in the first semester. Wherever I was going to go.
Now, why do you say that? Why do you feel that you would get kicked out?
I would have been buck wild. First night, whatever trouble I could get into, I would find it. Like, whatever, if the party title was Trouble, I would have been the first in line.
You would have been there.
Yes.
With a capital T.
Oh, yes. I wanted to know what it was like. I wanted to know trouble. And granted, I wasn't an angel in high school. I was like the student council president and like the person that threw the parties. I was, you know, so I was like the leader in the classroom, but like that crazy person with the teammates and stuff. But yeah, I knew first semester I was going to not make it.
Had you been in trouble growing up?
Yeah. I mean, not like...
mischievous?
Mischievous, because my mom always told me, don't mess up because we'll get deported, which I now know that would never happen. But that was definitely like something she tried to make me feel that would happen. So I always tried to... But again, I would do crappy one semester, and then the teacher would have a conversation with me, and then I would have straight A's. It was just like, you know, being motivated to do things and stuff. So I actually got kicked out of high school my senior year. And it didn't really shape me, didn't really change my outlook on life. It was like a mistake that happened. What'd you do? I got drunk at school. But I literally, honest to God, I didn't know what I was drinking because I had never drank before. So I thought it was hot Sprite. It was straight gin. So I was at school like blacked out. The next day I wake up, I'm at home. The next day I wake up, it's another day. And then my mom is literally beating me up. So, but it wasn't one of those things where like from that day forward, I never did this, whatever. It just was like... Yeah,
you weren't on a straight and narrow path after that, right?
It was like, I was on like the curved path that was like in the yield lane, merging on the right track. But I mean, it made me like, I never really touched a drop of alcohol again until I was legal, which I turned 18, I was in Germany, so I was legal.
You could drink, exactly.
But even when I came back to the States, I wasn't 21 yet, and I didn't drink. So it always kind of, but it wasn't like this huge, like, life-changing moment, but it's always something that, like, when I see a kid that maybe people give up on when they're younger, like, oh, this kid is not going to make it, this kid is whatever, I'm just like, you don't know what could, like, anything could happen with the right motivation, with the right presence in their life or something like that. So
and there's also an aspect, I mean, sometimes life is just unpredictable, and one move can have a consequence, but that doesn't mean it has to define the rest of your pathway, right?
Yeah, I could have easily, I mean, my assistant principal was like, oh, you're going to be on the corner, you're going to do all these things. I remember, like, she literally brought my mom in and said, there's not going to be a whole lot of potential that comes out of this in her own way, and that is something that shaped me.
I was going to say, did that motivate you?
Yeah, and it wasn't like, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to show you. It was just like, okay, we'll see. Yeah. And then it's always just been something that I've kept in the back of my mind.
You don't think it was a motivating thing to say, I'm going to prove you wrong?
I don't really think about her that much. Like, every time I'm doing something well, I'm like, ha, but I think it was like.
But just in terms of proving people wrong that you can do something, that motivates you?
Yes, I love to prove people wrong. I've been playing golf since I was 7. And so when people see me, they don't expect that. And then, like... Yeah,
you're not the typical golfer. No.
Right? And I'm like, my mom came to this country and her business deals were done on the golf course. So Tiger Woods was hot in Orlando, so she signed me up. There was no fighting it. I was going to be playing golf. And I played golf since. I played on my high school team. When I went to tech school, I played golf in Biloxi, Mississippi. When I was in Germany, I played golf in Ireland. I just used it as not just a recreational thing, but as literally as a networking and like being able to say, oh, I played that course in South Carolina, and somebody's like, what? And now I'm like, gotcha. Yeah. Now we can have a conversation.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Now everything's leveled out,
right?
Yes.
And now they're interested. Now they want to know more. Like, how your parents are Haitian and you play golf and you went to the Air Force Academy. Like, all these things now, I'm drawing you in more and more to what I'm about and what I'm passionate about. And it's been working so far, knock on wood. Yeah.
How often do you get to play now?
Not as much as I want to.
I was about to say, we got to get out there and play.
No, I know. And I was literally saying before this whole thing happened, like, when it gets warm, I got to do it because we have golf lessons in our programming. We talk about it. And I haven't had anybody to play with. And I just like to get drunk and get on the cart, So I have to find someone that has that balance of, like, having a good time, but not shanking it every time off the drive like that. Let's just have a good, solid 18 holes and, like, have a good time. So I got to find those people to my circle. And you're not the first person. Like, there's a couple, like, different golf organizations here in Atlanta that I just need to just do it. But I live so far from the city. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's plenty of golf courses where you are.
There are. I just need to find. I don't want to go by myself. I'm like that social.
You need to,
Yeah, I need to, and I don't have to be in a party necessarily, but I do, like, I don't like to work out by myself. I'd rather be on a co-ed rec team and use that as exercise kind of stuff. Like, I'm not going to be at the gym just in there by myself pumping iron. So. Well,
no, it's unique then that you like being on a team perspective, but golf is not such an individual sport. Now, there can be a team aspect of it.
Right.
As, like on your high school team. But
at
the end of the day, I mean, you have to...
It's all you.
It's all you.
Yeah.
Right?
And you have to focus, and if you mess up, you mess up.
That's right.
Unless you're playing a scramble, where you're like, oh, best ball, let's get that.
Which I love.
Yes, Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I got the short game on lock, boo.
Exactly.
Just get us to the green.
I got the putts today.
But no, I think it helps me in, like, in golf, you're not trying to hit the ball as hard as you can, right? It's about hitting the ball in the sweet spot and getting it. And that's kind of how I approach life. It's not about how hard I can go with, whether it's when I was at ESPN or with the Winning Edge. It's about getting the sweet spot and finding the lane, getting in the fairway, staying in the fairway, and finishing the job, get in the hole.
Of course. What did you learn from your time at Tennessee under Pat Summitt? I mean, she's arguably the greatest coach in college basketball.
Yes. And still the winningest, I'm pretty sure. So I learned a lot. I mean, my first week, I cried every day. And she wasn't even in the state of Tennessee at the time. So from
What do you mean you cried every day?
Oh, she said the standard really high before the season. I mean, this is May. So the season, I just graduated from Bemidji State, just drove 28 hours from Minnesota to Knoxville.
And again, there's a whole nother culture change right there.
Right. So coming from Atlanta to Bemidji, back down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm from the south of Atlanta. So to go to Knoxville, that was kind of like real shock for me. And she just set the standard from day one. And I just was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to live up to this standard. She wants me to help move in these top recruits. I don't know anything about them. I got to prepare for camp. I don't know anything about camp. I'm responsible for these kids who have won championships. Now I've got to be the one to tell them, all right, time to do whatever. And I'm 5'6.25", and they're like 6'6", all these things. So I was like, I'm just never going. And at the time, actually, we were sharing an office with the men's team. So Bruce Pearl was there because Thompson Bowen was under construction. So I'm like, Pat is yelling at me on the phone from Destin because she was on vacation. And then Bruce Pearl is over here just killing the game in recruiting and just having all these things. And here I am, the GA, just trying to figure it out. So it was tough. But I learned early on about excellence, and as an organization, how no matter where people come from, when they come into this organization, they understand that there is a standard here that you will live up to, and if you don't, you will be left behind. And I was totally okay with that because of everything that I was able to gain from the networks, the opportunities, the experiences, the players that I still like. They're grown now. They even have their own kids, but they're still my babies, And the main thing I learned from Pat, she said, I used them for 4 years. I expect them to use me for the rest of my life. And that has been something that really kind of fueled the winning edge. Like, as student athletes, they come and recruit you. They sit in your home and tell mom and dad, like, hey, we're going to make your daughter a whole woman. She's going to go out and become a professional beyond basketball. So Pat lived that every day. Like, she was the kind of coach, if you were coming to Knoxville and you didn't stay at her house, that was a problem. Like, you better not get a hotel room. You're not staying with somebody. All your kids, whoever you have with you, you're staying at Pat's house. And she's making you dinner. She's making ice cream. And that's it. Like, you need a place to stay. Something's going on, you stay at the pool house. Like, she really.
It's family.
It's like, it's not a game. It's not a game. It was never, it's family when the cameras are on, but then afterwards you can't reach her, or if you needed something, it's something different. It was always like, from her first team to the last team, where there's a sisterhood. It's truly a sisterhood.
And I think that's the one thing that people miss out on. The great coaches like that, or great leaders like that, they don't focus on the W's. The W's are the byproduct. No. It's the foundation of that culture, that family. You build that.
The rest is easy.
The rest, yes.
Yeah, and one story I was telling is like, if as a player, let's say you had a hard test coming up, and you're like, Coach, I gotta study for this test. I know we're about to play Mississippi State, but I really need to study for this test. Guess where you were? In Knoxville, while the rest of the team was in Stark Vegas playing a game, because the academics was always important to her. But then you come back and you have your best game because you know your coach made that sacrifice for you.
Exactly.
So it always worked out. And it was like, it's like you're a magician. You just know these things, like, I know what I'm going to do, So, and it was just like anytime. And especially at the time, we had a women's athletic department where not too many athletic departments had that anymore. I think it was like Texas maybe still had a women's athletic department. So I was, again, able to see in my face every day strong women taking leadership roles within the athletic department, making decisions. And it was great, and it really just provided the best example of what we can do as women.
Yeah, I mean, it was modeled in front of you,
Yes,
right?
yes. So
And that's very important.
yeah.
Was there an aspect that you wanted to be a coach?
Oh yes, that's what. If I'm gonna be the coach, I'm gonna go learn from the best, right? And then I was like, nope. What I won't do is lose my job because of what a 19-year-old tweets at 2:00 in the morning. No.
Hey, that's another thing. I'm so glad I grew up in an era we didn't have social media, we didn't have cell phones.
Goodness.
Nothing could be put out on the internet because I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah, no, and I mean this was 2010, 2012, so social media wasn't like as.
Yeah, but it was
getting there.
It was getting there.
And so people were still trying to like figure it out and
right.
see what's going on. So, and I was like, oh no. And then like the loyalty piece too. Like, I think if Coach K and Pat started coaching today, I don't know if they would still be at their respective schools.
Yeah, they'd be fired, right?
Gone. So
nobody gives anybody time anymore.
Right. And I'm not saying that I didn't think I would be a good coach. That's just a lot of pressure that I just never felt that I never thought the game was that serious to me. Like, because I didn't grow up in sports. Like, my family, Thanksgiving, we didn't sit around the couch and watch some game or like, no. So it wasn't like this is a make or break for me. My whole identity is wrapped around sports. It was more so like, I like hanging out with young people. I like developing them. I like seeing them grow. And I was like, if I can find a way to do that, then I'll be good. It doesn't have to be in coaching.
So why did you gravitate towards sports then if you didn't have that big background
I don't
watching
know.
it and all of that?
Yeah, I literally don't know. I think it just happened. Like, I think it was just something to do that was social, like going to watch practice or going, like I played basketball and ran track in Germany for our base team. And it was like, I just want to hang out with my friends. I just wanted to like travel and do these things. And I was like, oh, I like events. Oh, okay, you can do events in sports. Oh, okay, cool. Like literally it just kind of happened. Like I did it when I got to ESPN, people were like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to work at ESPN. It was like a dream job. I remember watching SportsCenter every day and I'm like literally never knew about this until like, I think at the time, the Sandusky case was like heavy, so it was like it was like CNN on ESPN, and I was like, that was like the first time that I really got like saturated with ESPN, exposed to it. But before then, I couldn't have told you who Stuart Scott was probably until like later in life.
How was your time at ESPN then?
I learned a lot. 5 years, in a millennial term now is like forever,
That's
right?
forever, that's right, yeah.
Which is terrible, but I learned so much more about the business of sports and like sitting in a room with athletic directors and seeing the decisions that are made, not just for the TV side, but from the operations side, from the team's contracts and everything that goes into a doubleheader with Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, and Kentucky. Like, people just think, hey, we just call the coaches up and say, hey, you want to play in this basketball game? Nah. It's so much more that goes into it that you're like, I just wish we could just play the game already. Like, and I was there when they started planning for PK80. And it was like, I didn't think it was ever going to happen with everybody, like people back now, especially like you have every top Nike school you could ever think of. You're putting them in a roof and you want them like, everybody has their own concessions and you need to do this for this team. And this team can't be on the same hotel as this team. And I'm like, we're never going to get it done. But it's like at the end of the day, sport transcends everything.
It does.
And they make it happen. Like, people come to the table, and whatever needs to be done, they're going to do it.
I look at your career and your path. It's almost a little bit Forrest Gumpish.
Yeah.
In terms of just all of the things,
the
unique things that you have done.
Yeah.
How did all of those things prepare you to launch the Winning Edge Leadership Academy? Because I think what you're doing is very unique, and but I also feel that I think it was at an appropriate time that you took the leap to do it, because you brought all of these experiences together.
I think it allowed me to be okay with failure. like when we first started out, we didn't know what we were doing. So all those experiences, I had failed at some point early on. And I say failure, I received lessons. They're not failures, they're lessons. It allowed me to talk and pitch this idea to anybody, which a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're first starting out, they don't know how to get their idea across. They kind of know, like, I know this group of people and this is it. Whereas me, I could talk to the coaches I remember when I used to work AAU basketball tournaments here in Atlanta, to the conference commissioners that I was dealing with when I was at ESPN. So I was able to just kind of bring all of those things that I thought was crazy then into perspective now, and leverage it, not just the relationships and the networking, but just like being able to drop that sometimes and let people know. Again, goes back to like impressing people, because that's what it is sometimes. In this world, it's about people, it's the Instagram life. Like, how do you look good to other people? And it's one thing for me to say, I learned a lot from my experiences, but it's another thing to say I learned a lot from Pat Summitt in my experiences. So
that carries weight.
Yes, and that's okay. Like, I used to like look down upon that and not try to say too much about these things, because it's like, oh, I'm a pretty modest person. But especially in sports and entertainment, when sometimes that's all that matters to some people, is that name, that extra clout piece. I'm okay, because I did live through that. Like, I did go through basic training. I did, like, all these things that happened to me, and I have to be okay with using that as part of my story.
Yes, it is. It's a very unique story, but it's unique to you,
right?
From that perspective, and it helped shape you, and again, be able to take that leap to start something like Winning Edge.
Yes.
How difficult was that leap to say, I'm going all in
do this? It wasn't too difficult, because Maria is like in my ear, like, do it. Just do it. Just do it. Like,
but did you feel the confidence to do it?
I was ready.
But ready, but
yes.
Taking action is...
I don't think that was ever an issue. I was so passionate about it. I mean, it was keeping me up at night. It was waking me up in the morning. It was something I was thinking about all the time.
Why so passionate about it?
Because I understood the difference the impact could make, because I had been a benefactor of that kind of work and that kind of impact. And I knew that you didn't have to build a school in Africa. You didn't have to write a $2 million check to make a difference in somebody's life. Literally just the time and the intention and the being meaningful about whatever it is that you're doing could change the trajectory. Like, there's no way I'm at Tennessee if it wasn't for Tasha Butts, who's at Georgia Tech now, saying, I'm going to connect you with Dean Lockwood and Holly Warlick. Like, somebody has to take a chance on you, or on yourself. You have to take a chance on yourself and take risk in order to make those things happen.
Why the name Winning Edge?
I actually was thinking about that the other day, because I'm like, were we just that smart and genius that we came up with something that just translated so well into what we did? And I think it's like, for a lot of our game changers, they're first generation college students. They are not the typical decision maker, and they don't look like the typical decision maker in sports and entertainment. And we wanted to provide something. We wanted to clear obstacles. We wanted to make it just a little bit easier for them to enter into the industry. We wanted to provide that edge. And it's like, why not? Winning edge. Everybody likes to win. Nobody wants to not win. So I think it was like an organic thing. I don't think we spent too much time. If there's anything...
Did it come...
Yeah.
I mean, just like both of you and Maria knew that, all right, Winning Edge, that's it. Yeah. That's the name. I mean, was it like one night you guys...
Yeah. Well, it was like, I had actually tried to launch the Winning Edge before I even met Maria. And, I was trying to like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do it. I actually wanted to do... have you heard of Hoop Fest?
Yes.
So that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to create an East Coast Hoop Fest that raised funds to provide professional development experiences for women and minorities. That was the goal. So the Hoop Fest was going to provide opportunities for women and minorities to work the tournament, gain experience, but also raise the money for them to, whether it was grad school or a conference, like that's what it was going to be. Because I'm a junkie. I'm a basketball junkie, and I went to Hoop Fest one time, and the whole time on the flight back, I'm writing these notes on how I can bring this to the East Coast. I even went to the Charlotte Motor Speedway and drove around the parking lot to see if I could find enough level areas to have the court.
Have all the courts.
Like, I was dead set. This is what I was going to do. And I just didn't have everything in place that I needed to. I mean, my dad and my grandmother had started businesses, but the nonprofit, no one I knew had done anything like that. And yeah, one night I remember I was in Boca Raton getting ready for the first Boca Raton Bowl. And Maria, I think, was in like Vegas or Texas doing a bowl game out there. And we were talking, and I was teaching at Johnson C. Smith at the time. And I was telling her, like, man, my kids, they're like juniors and seniors, and they're getting ready to graduate, and they're already 4 years behind those same students I've met at Tennessee who had been working at the athletic department since they were freshmen. And so before they even have a chance, they're behind. And she was like, we got to do something. She was like, I'm going to teach. I'm like, when? When are you going to teach? Yes. Please find the time in your schedule where you're going to teach. So I told her, hey, this thing I've tried to do before. I don't know if you're interested. She was like, let's do it. And she went and found a nonprofit for dummies book at Barnes & Noble, and we spent like 3 weeks straight, literally just like knocking out our 501c3, getting our articles of incorporation, our bylaws. Like we did everything before we made a website. Before we did anything, we made sure that we were legally bound to.
You had that foundation,
yes,
didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, and we just blew up from there.
I think it's fascinating just to be able to build something like that. The other aspect, though, I find interesting is that you put the word leadership in there as well. Yeah. Why is that?
And it's funny because now I try to run away from being put in a leadership box, because especially on campus, we are not the rah-rah, go and be a great teammate conversation. We are, you need to be ready to have a job after this kind of conversation. But we felt that the leadership piece is, you excel on the court or in the field of play, take that same mentality and be a leader in your industry. Be a leader, whether you're going to be the GA at Mississippi, like be the best GA you could be, and it just kind of, again, organically, like the words happen, the colors. As a bulldog and she's 6'2", I didn't really fight that too much. I was like, sure, we can do red and black. But literally that was, people spend so much time on like their name and their branding and it just literally happened. And I think I'm so thankful for that, because it really set the tone for how we operate now and how we're just like pretty chill. We like to pop up, do things of impact and move it on.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself through this whole process?
I learned that I could definitely be more patient. And I have seen that happen a lot more. But I also know that I love to be challenged. I like people to say something to me that I don't like. And how can I become better? How can, kind of going back to what you said about proving them wrong or showing them that we can do this. And I think like a lot of times when we step into a room, we impress people. You see 2 Black women, like, what's going on? I'm literally wear this kind of stuff all the time. Maria wears a dress and sneakers. Like, who the hell are these 2 girls coming in here doing this? And then we blow people's minds away, like, because we're so impactful. We're so intentional. And I think it had to be us. It had to be now. And it had to be this organization to do what we're doing right now.
What's the future for
we're definitely Edge? We're like creating a formula for success. We are not the end all be all. Like, we don't want people to feel like if you're not working with Winning Edge, you will not find success. No, we want people to understand like it doesn't take much. Anybody can do this. If you are the coordinator at your job, you can mentor somebody. If you are the CEO of your job, you can provide opportunities. Like, everybody can do what we're doing at any level. But the future for us is just more intentional programming. We want to take our kids overseas. A lot of our students have never left the country. Maybe they're even their own state before they went to college. And we know sport is globalizing. Is that a word?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying it's a word.
All right. Well, the globalization of sport is something that we want to expose our students to, and which we're excited about. We really want to get into actually adding resume builders to our students, because we can have conferences and webinars and go on campus and take cute pictures, but if we're not getting them the things, the experience that they need on their resume to be an asset to someone's team after they play, then we aren't doing our job. So excited about creating more opportunities for our corporate partners to engage our game changers and provide opportunities, and for our game changers to understand, like, not everything you do has to be this huge commitment of internship for 3 months, and if you can't do that, you don't get it. Like, no, let's create opportunities that are manageable for you and get you the same result.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting aspect when you say that, just, you know, having these little accomplishments that you can put on your resume, because, you know, 30 years ago, it was that whole aspect of, oh, you had to be at a company, you stayed with them for, if you left, you were unloyal.
Yes.
Right? If you left a company. But now I think it's viewed upon, hey, go get all of these different experiences, because what we're finding out is that you'll be more well-rounded when you do that. Yeah. And I think that's important to be able to offer those aspects, you know, to these student athletes. I also think there's an aspect of this leader thing, you know, leadership, going back to it, that there's a servant leadership aspect to it. Yeah. Would you consider yourself a servant leader?
Definitely. I've thought about putting on a shirt, #servant leader, and selling it and raising money. So don't steal it.
I won't. But I'll help you sell it.
Yes, but no, definitely. I think I have found more success in my career because I'm a servant leader and people know me as that. And we kind of try to preach that in our programming, like, more good will come your way if you give of yourself. You know, when you're reaching out to someone, it's not about what they can do for you, but, hey, how can I help you? Hey, I see you need a website. Can I update that for you? Or, hey, I see your social media is not that great. Can I help you create content for that? People are going to welcome that a lot more than, hey, can I pick your brain and get something from you and get a job?
That's right.
You know, and so the servant leaders, I mean, Pat was one, you know, a lot of the people in my life that I've taken a lot from have been servant leaders, and I just don't think I ever had a chance to not be one. That was the path that was going.
Yes, that was happening for you.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom. Yes. What's some life advice, or even just mottos, phrases, or quotes that helped you become that servant leader, helped you, to be the person you are?
Two of my favorite is, closed mouths don't get fed. And it's something that we say all the time. If people don't know what you want, how can people help you? Like, no one gets to where they want to be by themselves. And when in school, anyone who would listen, they knew. Whether it was at the time I wanted to be a coach or whatever I wanted to do at the time, people knew about it. And I found it so beneficial because 6 months later, I would just hear from somebody random, like, hey, somebody was talking about this tournament, would you want to come work? Yes, I will. Because they remembered I was talking about that. And the other quote that it's on my signature is, service to others is the rent that you pay for your time on earth. And that's Muhammad Ali. And it's something that I live by. Every day I wake up with the thought of, how can I help somebody else today? And it's not to make myself feel great or better, but it's like, if I'm not helping somebody today, did I really accomplish or attack the day?
Yeah. Well, and there's that aspect of, what did the saying, rising tides lift all boats, right? Yes. And so let's lift everybody up.
Everybody can eat. You know, it's not a pie.
That's right. It's not exactly.
Everybody can eat. I always tell people that. So.
And the missing point in terms of networking is what you said, is that you need to tell people what your goals are, what you want.
Yeah, and be consistent.
Be consistent, yes. And be persistent and all that. And you mentioned it earlier, be intentional. Yeah. You have to be intentional from that aspect.
Yes.
So how are you taking care of yourself? Though? Because you work a lot.
I do.
How do you re-energize yourself?
I don't have a choice. I have to take him on walks a lot. He doesn't look like much.
I know he doesn't look active right now. I can promise you that.
I'm so embarrassed. No, he doesn't look very active right now, but we are pretty active. Every morning I start my day going to the lake, and either I'm paddleboarding or I'm going on a couple mile hike. And that's before I answer any emails. That's before I do any calls. Most people know, like, until about 9:30, even if you send her a message, she may be awake. She's not going to respond until after she goes to the lake. And that's something that...
You're setting the tone.
Setting the tone for the day. Just like, I dream hard. And it takes a lot out of me.
What do you mean you dream hard?
I am literally, there's just never a moment in where I'm sleeping that I'm just relaxed on the beach with a mojito. It's always like, okay, how are we solving this problem? How am I helping? Like, literally, that's what I'm dreaming about. So I wake up, sometimes I'm like more tired. And then I just want to like empty my brain and hit reset, like for real, by not thinking about anything. So I don't even bring like, people listen to podcasts. I don't even do that. Like, I'm literally just going to walk with no noise. And sometimes I get lost in the sauce and start thinking about things, and I say, nope, no. And I know it works because I have gotten lost on the hike that I take many times because I'm just, like, out of it.
Just completely zoned out.
And I mean, like, we're lost. Like, 3 hours. Drake is, like, struggling behind me trying to find water. So I know what I'm doing can really zone myself out. I just try to be consistent with reaching out to people. It's something that I find a lot of joy out of. I love hearing updates and stuff and finding out how I can help someone because it fuels me and provides me with ammunition. Okay, how can I apply how this person used this for the next person or for our game changers? So I think it's been very humbling to start my days slow and to check in with people because no matter how crazy I get, no matter how busy I get, I always make time for those two things. Like, I have people's birthdays in my calendar, and if it's somebody's birthday, they're getting a call from me. It's not a text, it's not a Facebook message, it's a call. And it's usually a rap. I like to rap my birthday messages.
Okay. And do you have a unique rap each time, or you just have your...
No, it's the same.
It's the same. All right, well, we got to hear it.
Well, actually, my friend just remixed it and added a real beat to it.
Okay, all right.
But it's this happy birthday song Pat used to sing, which was just like, happy birthday, it's your birthday, happy birthday, birthday to you. And then being from Atlanta, I add like the trap to it in the end. So then it goes... Now break it down now. It turns into like a whole minute on your phone if you don't answer of me singing happy birthday or rapping happy birthday.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's your next career then, right?
I know. If there's anything.
This Forrest Gump type of pathway that you've had. I love it.
Perfect. I love it.
Corinne, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank
you
for the platform for our committee members as well.
I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Rich Take on Sports. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.